All right. So, hello everyone. No, our topic today is locating our trade levels. No, so kasi po pag nagte-trade tayo sa market, hindi naman tayo bara-bara. No, I know that the market generally goes up, it goes down, it goes sidewards, and you have a lot of factors that can help you in your trading. But before you get through all of those stuff, you need to have very definitive areas where we want to trade. So yun po yung gagawin natin ngayon. No? We're gonna try to locate trade level so that our trading won't be all over the place. Kasi kapag nagsisimula po tayo mag-trade, no, I'm sure that a lot of us here has already experienced that. You look at your charts, you don't know where to start, no? Pag tingin mo sa charts, uy, paakyat yung market, bibili ka, tapos biglang babagsak yung market, no? Uy, mukha namang pabagsak yung market, magbebenta ka, biglang aakyat yung market, no? And then it's everywhere. No? The market is moving around everywhere. So we have to have very specific areas where we actually want to take trades para nasisimplify po yung trading natin. It's gonna make you go crazy kung ang dami nating tinitingnan sa market, no? So you need to have just very specific areas. Okay, ito yung area na gusto kong bumili, ito yung area na gusto kong magbenta, ito yung area na inaabangan ko pumunta yung price doon. No? So yun yung gusto natin gawin for the first session. So what we're trying to do in our price action series is that we're gonna try to study, no, in depth kung paano ba gumagalaw yung presyo, how price moves, how does how can we trade with that type of movement, saan tayo pupwesto sa market, and we're gonna put more sense sa charts natin kasi pag tingin natin sa charts, it looks very chaotic, and when you start trading, it gets even more chaotic. So yun yung gusto natin gawin. We're gonna try to simplify that. Okay, so whenever we look at our charts, wait, let me just show you our charts here. Give me a moment. Okay, yan po. So whenever you have your charts over here, yeah, ito po. So makikita po natin, no, that the market is generally going up, no, it's generally going down. Ang tanong, saan tayo po pwesto dyan? No? Where do we actually look for opportunities to buy, or where do we look for opportunities to sell? So I'm gonna show you 3 ways, no, kung paano natin mahanap yung mga trade levels natin. So number 1 is simply looking at supports and resistances na horizontal. No? So these are specific areas where you can look for opportunities to buy or sell. Then second type is more of trend lines. So ito naman at an angle naman yung mga supports and resistances natin. And then the third one would be yung mga pivot points. No? So if you're having a lot of difficulty locating your trade levels, meron tayong mga ways to automatically generate your trade levels basing it on yung previous high, low, and close, no, yung mga previous price movements. Okay, so simulan muna natin ngayon yung ating concept of supports and resistances. Ano ba yung supports and resistances natin? Supports and resistances are areas on your charts where price potentially may bounce, no? So saan pwedeng tumalbog yung presyo? Maybe if you've covered our intro part ng price action, nakita nyo na, no, kung paano natin nahanap yung supports and resistances. So I suggest you guys go through that, no, before you actually go through this webinar. But if you're already in the class, then you can check it out later. Anyway, so yung concept ng supports and resistances are areas on your charts where price has bounced before, and the next time price revisits that, there's a good chance that the same thing might happen again. No? So yun yung concept natin ng supports and resistances. Now, just to give you an idea, no, looking at this chart over here, lakihan lang natin. Okay, looking at this chart over here, meron tayong areas kung saan tumalbog yung presyo dati. No? So let me just kind of draw it a little bit. As you can see, the market moved up here and down. And over here, the market moved down and moved up. No? So, meaning, nung umaakyat po yung price, no, coming from here, price was going up here. Suddenly, at this area, nagkaroon po ng very strong reaction yung market. No? So nagkaroon ng strong rejection. There's a lot of ways to term it. A lot of traders mention it as as a resistance, as a rejection in the market. Yeah, it's basically the same idea, no? Tumalbog yung market dyan. And after that, the market went down. No? After that, bumagsak yung market dito, and around this area, nagkaroon din ulit siya ng strong rejection. Nagkaroon ng strong rejection at lumipad yung market. So, based on those areas, no, itong dalawang area na to, alam natin na merong chance na pwedeng tumalbog ulit yung market dyan. Meaning if the market revisits that same area, there's a good chance that the same thing might happen again at pwede siyang bumagsak ulit. At dito din, when the market comes back to that area, there's a good chance na pwede siyang tumalbog ulit. So that's the concept of your supports and resistances. These are areas on your charts where price has bounced before, and the next time price revisits that area, pwede siyang tumalbog ulit. So if you notice, there's actually a lot of rejections that you will see on your charts. For example, umakyat yung price dito, bumaba, umakyat. So you actually get to see a lot of rejections in the market. And those areas are, clearly rejections sa market po natin. Okay? Now, you could also take those supports and resistances. Those are also valid. No? Those are also valid areas for you to look for opportunities to trade. But ideally, we want to take the bigger areas. No? Yung mga medyo malakas talaga na rejection sa market, because that gives us more confirmation that would be a good trade level. Okay? So, just for a definition sake, yung support po, yan yung nandito sa ilalim. These are areas below the current price. So if this is the current price, these are areas below the current price where, if price goes down, it may bounce from there. Resistances naman, these are areas on your charts na pag umakyat yung market doon, pwedeng mag-bounce ulit yung market naman pababa. So support nasa ilalim, resistance po nasa taas. Okay. So let's now take a look at how do we actually identify those supports and resistances? Now, if you're new to the market, this is one of the best ways for you to identify those levels. Okay? Yung horizontal areas natin. Now, first step is to identify the major swings in the market. Now, hanapin niyo po yung major swings, and just like what we did earlier, look at the areas where price had a very strong rejection. So, kung makikita po natin, let's take a look at our canned example first. You have here the market coming down, and dito galing sa taas yan, market goes down here and shows you a very strong rejection. After that, lumipad yung market, Umakyat yung market dito, also showed you a strong rejection. Market goes down, gave you a strong rejection, so on and so forth, Now, after you've identified the major swings in the market, what you need to do is to find the tipmost candlestick. By the way, if you're having a lot of difficulty identifying the swings in the market, you can use this indicator as an alternative. Gamit po kayo ng zigzag indicator. So later we'll show you on the charts how to apply that properly. But basically what the indicator does is that it shows you swings in the market. Yun yun. So papakita niya lang siya yung mga swings. Now, after that, when you locate those swings in the market, look at the tipmost candlestick. Hanapin niyo po yung pinakadulo. Find the candlestick at the end of the swing and use its wick as the zone. Then you draw a rectangle from it. What do you mean? Tandaan niyo po that whenever you have a candlestick chart, yung candlesticks natin, they look different from each other. But essentially, they have the same parts. Meron kang body ng candlestick, tapos meron kang wick. The body is the rectangular part of your candlestick, and then the wicks, yun yung mga tusok na nakikita nyo sa taas at sa baba. Okay? So we're just looking at the wicks. Okay? Now, when you find the candlestick at the end of the swing, what you need to do, if you're looking at the resistance like this one, check nyo po yung wick sa may top side, sa may taas. Kung resistance yan, kailangan yung wick sa taas. Kung support yan, kailangan yung wick sa ilalim. Okay? Now, when you look at that wick, check if the wick is relatively long. Kung medyo mahaba-haba po yung wick, you can use that whole wick as your resistance or as your support. You can use that whole area as your trade level. In this example, I drew a rectangle so that it's highlighted and you get to see kung saan yung wick na yon. Alright. So with that, given the same example, ito po yung sa may taas na yan. So when you extend it further to the right, that whole area could be a potential area where price could bounce. Ibig sabihin, pag umabot po yung presyo doon sa area na yan, that gives you a very good opportunity to sell. Kapag umakyat siya, ito yung area na dinrawingan natin kanina, that can actually give you a good opportunity to sell. Now, dito naman sa baba, makikita nyo po yung support natin. If we did the same idea there, we had the same idea there, kita nyo po dyan, you get the tipmost candlestick, tapos check nyo po yung wick sa may ilalim, kung mahaba po yun, you get that whole area and that would be your support. Okay? Now, Paano naman po kung walang wick? No? Paano kung umakyat yung prices mo ba, pero yung itsura po ng candlesticks natin, parang isang bloke lang. Parang ganyan, no? That's your bullish candlestick. Tapos yung susunod, bearish candlestick. Napakaliit lang ng wick. Ano gagawin po natin doon? What you can do is later, you can go down to a lower time frame. Kung D1 yung tingin mo dyan sa charts, tingin po kayo sa H4. Pag tingin nyo sa H4, you look at the same area. You might be able to find a better candlestick to base your trade on. No? In addition to that, kung maliit lang naman po yung candlestick, kanwari, umakyat yung price dyan, tapos meron kang maliit na candlestick dyan, no? Tapos yung next price, bumaba na siya. No? You can use this full candlestick as your area. Okay? So that also goes the same way for, whenever you go down to a lower time frame. Kung nakita ka na ganyang setup sa lower time frame, just use the whole candlestick na lang doon sa dulo. Okay? And that would give you a better zone. Later, let's check out some examples para mas makita natin. Okay? But in essence, yun yung ano natin. That's how we find our zones. No? Now, moving forward, take note that the bigger the swing, the stronger the zone. So yun po yung na-mention natin kanina, that the stronger the rejection, the more likely it is to be a better trade level. No? Kapag mahina lang yung rejection, then it would be less reliable than the bigger ones. So if you want to be on the safe side, try to look at the bigger ones instead of the smaller ones. No? Later on, sige, pwede ka na dun sa mga mas maliliit na swings since you can manage your risk better. Mas maganda na yung pasok mo. You have other elements to confirm your trade. But, for starters, I do suggest you take the bigger swings. No? Or especially if you're relatively busy during the week, hindi mo masyadong na mo-monitor yung charts, I suggest you just stick to the D1 charts, tapos tignan mo lang yung malalaking swings. It takes forever to get there, but when the price does get there, it might give you a better trade opportunity than the ones you find on the smaller swings. Okay? So mas maganda yung, kumbaga, chance of getting a good trade. All right. So here's a good example of that. Now, the bigger the swing, the bigger swing held the zone better than the smaller swing over here. So kung makikita po natin dito, this is the same chart that we had before. And remember, this is the resistance that we drew. Now, when price went to that area right here, it actually gave us a pretty good bounce, no? So kita mo, umakyat yung price. And, if you want to go a little bit more advanced on this one was actually a pretty good sell signal. No, yan yung ating candlestick confirmation that would sell. It's called an evening star. And, from there, the price actually went down. So, yung candlesticks, we'll talk about that another day. No, kasama naman sa listahan natin yan ng price action. Anyway, so, this one actually gave us a pretty good opportunity for us to sell. Now, if you compare that same level doon sa mga mas maliliit, no, ito yung same na dinrawingan natin kanina, notice that yung dito sa may ilalim, tumagos siya ng konti, no? Price actually, gave us a fake out here, and then finally yung price umakyat. So I'm not sure if we're gonna be able to get that trade well. And if you're using candlestick confirmations, probably you would have gotten that trade, no? But if not, kung medyo pending orders lang yung ginawa natin, malamang tinamaan yung stop loss natin dyan. No? Now, on the other hand, dito naman, you have a nice resistance over here. Could have sold at this area. No, meron ka nakikitang relatively pin bar-like structure candlestick there that could have told you to sell. And then after that, lumipad yung market. Also probably hit our stop loss. No, dyan sa trade na yan. So, my point here is that if you want to be on the safe side, try to get the bigger swings instead of the smaller ones. The bigger ones will be more reliable than the smaller ones. Okay? Now, in addition to that, the higher the time frame, the more reliable the charts become. So this is a very common concept in technical analysis. Now, whenever you look at supports and resistances on higher time frames like D1 charts, H4 charts, matitibay po yung mga levels na makukuha nyo doon. But if you compare them to the levels that you draw on M15, H1, yung medyo mabababang time frame, then they would be less reliable. Okay, so medyo mas mahirap po mag-trade kapag, or rather gumawa ng mga trade levels doon sa mga lower time frames. Okay, so if you want to be on the safe side, no, again, go with the higher time frames with this, technique. All right. Here's another example. No? This is the pound against the US on the H4 chart. And as you can see, you have relatively big swings. Dito, meron kang magandang swing dyan. Dito sa taas, meron din. Then you have a lot of very small ones, no? And notice that the big swings were actually able to hold their levels very well, while the smaller ones wasn't able to do, very well with that. Okay? Ayan. So kung mapapansin nyo, ito naman, on the M15 chart, as you can see, if you draw some supports and resistances on M15, it might not be as reliable as the ones you find on higher time frames. All right? So, any questions before we move on to our charts? All right, let me just open our charts here. Ayan. So ito po yung charts natin. No? So first, we'll take a look at Euro USD, and then later, we'll check out a couple of charts that you guys want. No? So mag-isip na kayo ng mga charts na gusto nyong i-identify natin yung supports and resistances, especially if you have a current trade. No? That could help a lot. So dito po, using the same technique that we had earlier, if you're having a hard time, gamit kayo ng zigzag, no? Insert, custom. Ito po, all the way down here, you will find zigzag. Okay? Okay, so once you have that, you will actually have a couple of swings in the market. So, yung zigzag, hindi naman laging tama yan. No? May mga times na madidetect siya na hindi masyadong magandang support or resistance. May mga times na hindi niya nadidetect yung mga magagandang supports and resistances din. No? So, maganda pa rin na ma-develop mo yung skill, yung personal skill mo of, looking at the big swings in the market. But for starters, this can help a lot. Okay? So, ayan po. Makita nyo po, you have a very nice swing here. And looking at the same idea that we had earlier, let's just put a line on it for now. Ayan po yung simula ng ating resistance. No? That's 1.1447. And then the highest point that it can go, no, would be around here at 1.1498. No? So, nandyan naman. So, I'm not sure if the market hit that area. Ayan, hindi masyadong tinamaan. Okay. And dito naman sa may baba, I'll color it so that it looks a little bit more visually pleasing. Okay. Let me just color it yellow para madaling makita. Yan. Okay. So that would be our resistance, no? Basically, that's an area where we want to look for opportunities to sell. At yung support naman natin, medyo malayo pa naman yung sa support. So I'm just gonna draw a rectangle from here. And ayan po, no? All right. So currently, yun yung levels natin for Euro USD. No? I know that it might take a long time for the market to actually hit that, but when it does, it might actually present a pretty good opportunity for you to buy or sell. No? So dito ka maghahanap ng buy, dito ka naman maghahanap ng opportunity to sell. No? And that gives you a good, daily chart to trade in, and that would be pretty reliable. Okay? Now, if you go a little deeper, baba tayo sa H4, you can actually see a couple of other levels that you can trade in. Okay? So makikita nyo po, yung current resistances na meron tayo, this is the nearest one. Okay? That's your resistance. And now for your support, kakabasag lang nito. Okay? See? So that support was just recently broken. And from there, the market could actually free fall going down. Okay? Now, in addition to what we learned earlier, the market will never be contained between a particular support or resistance. Eventually, it breaks out from that area. Yun yung exact term for it. It's called the breakout. No? So, just like this example over here, meron tayong magandang support dito, meron din tayong magandang resistance. Now, eventually, the market broke that support and it's continuously going down right now. So, ano po nangyayari kapag nababasag po yung support or nababasag yung resistance? No? Just a little bit of recap, no, dun sa intro to price action natin. Whenever your supports are broken, they turn into resistances. So ito, nabasag yan na support, it can now turn into a new resistance. Meaning, if price breaks that area, zoom in ko na konti. If price breaks that area, just like it did here, binasag niya, magsak siya dito, it could actually go up, retrace to the same area, and now be a new resistance. And that gives you an opportunity to sell. So pwede mong sabayan na yung market pabagsak. Okay? So whenever your supports are broken, they turn into new resistances. Now, same idea. Whenever you have a broken resistance, it turns into a new support. So kumbaga dito, let's say you name this as a resistance. And then after that, no, the market breaks past that. Kung mapapansin nyo, market breaks past that, goes back down, uses it as a support. No, broken resistances turn as a new support, and from there uses it as a launching pad for the market to go upwards. Okay, so tandaan nyo, pag nababasag yung support, it turns into a new resistance. Kung nababasag yung resistance, it turns into a new support. Okay, so looking at your H4 chart here, delete ko lang to para malinis tignan. The next levels that the market could reach would be your old resistance, which is now a new support. No? Yan yung one of the potential areas na pwedeng tumalbog yung market. And over here, ito yung next support mo naman na pwedeng tumalbog ulit yung market. Okay? So these are opportunities for you to buy. So looking at this market right now, sa H4 natin, the market could actually continuously go down up until our next support dito. Okay? Dito ka ngayon maghanap ng opportunity to buy kung hindi ka nakapag-sell dito. Okay. So let me just check if we have any questions. Give me a moment. Ito may mga tanong tayo. Give me a moment to read it. All right, we have a couple of suggestions. Check natin. Okay, pwede po ba gumawa ng zigzag batay sa price action ng market? What do you mean gumawa ng zigzag? Like yung mano-mano? Pwede. Mas maganda nga yun para mas ma-practice yung your own eye in looking for them. Regarding sa zigzag, okay lang ba naka-default settings lang siya? Yeah. So default settings are already good. Minsan na ako sorry, nawala yung chat ko. Wait lang. I think something happened to Zoom. Can you guys message me yung yung chat nyo? Are you guys still there? All right, ayun. Okay, thank you. Nawala yung biglang nawala yung listahan ng chat. Can you just, send me the yung tanong niyo ulit, no? Biglang na-clear yung chat ko. Weird. Okay, anyway. Okay, do you use time frame confluence? Like, I think madaming nadadali sa direction ng market kung isang time frame lang ang pinagbabasihan. Okay, that's a good question. All right, if we're talking about time frames, then yes, I do take a look at time frame confluence. I do suggest you take a look at the higher time frame so that it's less confusing. Kanwari, titingin ka sa D1, no, yun yung main direction mo. Tapos kapag nag-draw ka ng supports and resistances sa D1 mo, you can maybe go down to H4 or H1 kapag pumunta na yung price doon sa support or resistance mo. So kumbaga yung basihan mo ng supports and resistances or ng trend is the D1 charts. And then kapag umabot na yung presyo doon sa trade level mo, saka ka bababa ng lower time frame, H4, H1 for, quicker entries in the market. All right. Yung 1.1100, pwede din bang supports or resistances dyan? Okay, let me check. 1.100 dito. If you're just talking about the whole number itself, no, ito ba? Wait lang. 1.100. Ito, pwede naman, no? If you're seeing this little bit of resistance, pwede naman siya, no? Pero syempre less reliable than the other ones. Kasi nag-consolidate naman yung market diyan. Lowbat na yung sige, anyway, hindi pa naman siya lowbat, no? I think. All right. Anyway, so moving forward, no? Okay, malinaw? Yung mga ibang tanong, hindi ko na basa. Just tanong niyo na lang ulit. Anyway, so moving forward, yun po ang ating supports and resistances ng horizontal. So, let's have another example just to make sure that it sticks. And yung kanina gold, may nagre-request. Alright, let's look for gold. Okay, so simulan mo natin sa D1 and let's, apply the same process as we had earlier. Looking at gold right now, it's quite simple. You have a very nice looking resistance at the top side. And you also have a very nice looking support dito naman po sa may baba. No? So if we take a look at your resistance over here, that would be this level right here. At ilang beses na actually tumalbog yung presyo. Tapos dito naman sa baba, that would be your support. No? So this is a little bit tight, as you can see. So it's not as good as the support you will find all the way down here. So ito medyo maganda yung support dito sa may baba, pero malayo pa yan. No? So this is the immediate support that we're looking at. And with that, makikita nyo po, your price actually has bounced off your resistance a couple of times. So kita nyo, you have, drawing ako na lang give me a moment. Get me my... Ayan, so meron kang... Alright, you have one here. And you have one here. And again, it's testing it again here. No? So ilang beses na siya nagbabounce. Alright, so I always get this question. Sir, ilang bounces dapat yung support or resistance bago siya maging valid? Or does it mean that the more times a support or resistance is tested, mas lalo po siyang lumalakas, no? Personally, I do not believe that. I believe the exact opposite, no? Sa tingin ko po, that the more times a support or a resistance is tested, that actually means that it's getting weaker. No? Baliktad po yung paniniwala ko pagdating diyan, no. It really depends on the trader. May mga ibang naniniwala dun sa medyo old school na na saying that the more times a support or resistance is tested, the stronger the level actually is, no. So bakit ko naman kinukontra yun, no? Why do I think otherwise? Well, imagine that there's a lot of orders doon sa specific area na yun, no? There's a lot of orders. For example, sabihin natin maraming mga pending orders, may mga block orders doon sa area na yun. And when the price hits that area, then nagre-reverse yung supply and demand, no? Biglang lumilipad yung price kung nasa support or bumabagsak siya from the resistance, no? So ibig sabihin na fulfill yung mga orders na yun. Now the next time the same level is tested, then there will be less orders there. Okay? So mas konting orders na lang yung naiiwan doon, and that would be weaker, no, in terms of that. Mas konti na yung trades that would take the opposite side. And eventually, nababasag yung area, no? So that's my idea on that. All right. Okay, can I check out the currency strength meter para malaman o ma-monitor? Yeah, go ahead. If you have external sources for currency strength meter, why not? Kung ginagamit mo yung sa fundamentals natin dito sa PAFTI, that's a good way to do it. Meron din tayo nung PAFTI report, no? We'll probably issue one this week para meron kayong a guide for the whole week. Okay. So anyway, yan po yung current supports and resistances natin for gold. Looking at H4, you might see a couple of other ones. Ayan, no? Tignan nyo. May mga mas maliliit pero hindi na ganun katibay yung mga yan. Okay? Alright, so let's move forward. So that's the first way to identify your supports and resistances. Now, the second way are using trend lines. No? And trend lines are relatively easy to use. No? Ang ginagawa lang natin sa trend lines is just you get your trend line tool doon sa MetaTrader platform natin and you try to connect the dots. No? Check mo yung mga low points ng price and then you try to connect them together. You'll be able to get your trend line support. No? Yung sa taas naman, no, if you try to connect the dots doon sa mga highs natin, then you'll be able to generate your resistance there. Okay? Now, from there, there's actually a couple of things that could happen. No? Yung supports and resistances natin, no, at an angle, it could result into a channel or it could result into a triangle. Okay, so let me show you that on our charts now. Mas maganda po kasi siyang makita ng actual. All right, so let's have another currency pair. Anong gusto niyo makita? Any particular charts you guys want to check out? Sorry, nawala yung chat ko kanina eh. Kaya nawala eh. Okay, USD JPY. Sige, UJ daw. All right, so looking at UJ right now, let's take a look at a... Sige, dito muna. No? Let's take a look at H4. And yan, zoom in tayo ng konti. Okay, so looking at your USD JPY sa H4 chart, as you can see, yung mga highs natin are not very nice to connect. No? So parang wala masyadong trend line na nangyayari. No? And same thing with your support. There's not really a lot of stuff to connect. No? So medyo pangit yung itsura ng market ngayon. Eh. If we go down to a lower time frame, maybe we can see something better. Ayan, sa H1. All right, looking at H1, it's showing you a little bit of consolidation in the market. No? So makikita po natin dito. Ito po yung mga highs. No? If you try to, kind of put them together, yan, you'll actually be able to draw a little bit of a trend line. Okay? So nakikita niyo po. We're just trying to connect the dots, no? Yung mga recent highs at saka yung mga recent lows, and you'll be able to make your trend lines there. And whenever you make that, no, yung sa support at sa resistance natin, dalawa lang po ang pwedeng mangyari dyan. Either, eventually, they will meet at an apex, okay? Magiging triangle yung itsura niyan, or it could be channeling, no? For example, ito yung itsura ng channeling. No? You have market coming down here. Ito naman yung support natin going down. See? So there's like, two things that could come out of that. So pwede kang magkaroon ng triangle, pwede kang magkaroon ng channel. Okay? So sa next class natin, pag-uusapan natin to at a deeper level. No? Next few classes, we'll talk about flags, pennants, no? Yung mga usual candlestick patterns that we can take advantage of kapag nakikita natin ito. But essentially, this is also one way to use supports and resistances. No? You use trend lines, you try to connect the dots. And a lot of people ask, sir, saan ba dapat ilalagay yung trend lines natin? Should I place it on the wicks or should I place it on the body of the candlesticks? Personally, I would suggest you use it on the wick para hindi na lang magulo. Kumbaga yung pinakadulo na lang talaga ng market. But some traders like to use it on the body of the candlesticks. But the problem with that is that sometimes it becomes a little subjective kasi nagbabago po yung itsura ng mga candlesticks nyo depende sa server ng broker nyo. Okay? So, yun yung usual problems ng that actually come out with that. Okay? So, I suggest you go with the wicks kasi yung at least yung highest at saka yung lowest relatively the same yan. Okay? All right, so let me just check. I think we have a couple of questions here. Give me a moment. Okay, I have a couple of charts. Sige, try natin itong mga to so that we have a lot of practice. GBP USD, USD CAD, Euro CHF, Euro JPY. Okay, sige, we'll do that. Oh, can you review yung gold? Oh, sige, balikan din natin yung gold. All right, so let's check all that so that we have a lot of practice. Looking at the D1 chart, makikita nyo po, hindi natin masyadong magagawa ng medyo malinis na trend line. No? This is the best we can do for now. See, that's gold. And as of now, medyo hindi masyado maganda eh. No? You don't really have a very nice looking trend line here. Kung gagawin natin siya channel, pangit kasi medyo pa-open siya eh. No? Ayan. So currently that is what gold is right now on the D1 charts. It's not very good. If you go down to the H4 chart, you have a little bit of a trend line coming out here. Ayan. So medyo maganda tignan yung trend line natin. And yung mga recent highs natin are pretty much on the same area. So you would have a little bit of something like this. Yan. Ito yung itsura ng market natin yan. And from here, we'll see kung anong pwedeng mangyari sa market. Kasi dalawa ang pwedeng puntahan yan. Pwedeng umakyat. It could break out from that area there. Or it could look for an opportunity to crash down here. Okay. So pag ganyan, normally ang direction yan is more on paakyat eh. But later we'll learn more of that sa candlestick patterns na. Okay. All right. Do you use longer and short-term trend lines? Not really, no? Kasi minsan mo komplikado eh. If you have trend lines on the higher time frames, you have trend lines on lower time frames, tapos you have trend lines on medium time frames, mahirap, no? Nagiging fruit ninja yung charts eh. So, I would suggest try to keep it simple so that it's not confusing. All right, so let's have the other pairs that were requested. GBP USD. Okay, let's try to analyze it on multiple levels. Okay, so ito po, kung makikita nyo, bumagsak yung pound for the past few days. And if you guys have watched our weekly market review recently, I did mention that there's two things that gonna happen with the pound. Number one, yung usapan sa Brexit, no, which was actually good, kaya umakyat ng konti yan at the start of the week. And then mention ko na no change ang interest rate ng BOE. And if they're still gonna continue with quantitative easing, price would crash down. And true enough, yan yung nangyari. No? Anyway, so, all right. So looking at that, ito po yung mga current supports and resistances natin. Looking at the horizontal levels, yan. Okay, yan ang ating current supports and resistances. So kung makikita nyo, medyo malayo pa pwedeng ibagsak nito. Ang GBP USD, pwede siyang saluhin dito pa sa may baba. That's still 200 pips down. Okay. If you go down to a lower time frame, let's check out our tingnan natin trend lines. Kita nyo po, medyo tuloy-tuloy siya pabagsak. And over here, you actually have a little bit of a channeling market going downwards. No? So we assume that the market may actually continue this type of movement hanggang pababa. Okay? So nakita nyo na how we're able to combine like a couple of levels na pwedeng mangyari sa market. Okay? Let's try Euro JPY. May nag-request. Euro JPY. Ay, mali. Euro JPY. Okay, may question dito. Basically, sir, sa D1, yung tinitignan mo if you are trying to identify the trend. Opo, pwede. No? Actually, okay lang din kahit naman bumaba ka ng konti sa H4. But yung trend, we'll discuss it for a different day. Hindi mo natin i-combine kasi medyo masakit sa ulo pag pinagsama natin lahat. Okay? Alright, so same type of analysis, Euro JPY. Okay, gawa ka muna nung horizontal levels mo. Okay, diba? Malinis na malinis. Okay. Supports and resistances. So it's in the middle of everything. We don't know what's gonna happen for now. Nasa gitnang-gitna siya. Okay. Now, if you look at your trend lines on the D1, non-existent, no? But if you look down at the H4 charts, baka meron tayong makita. It's quite similar to what we saw earlier, the pound. Meron po tayong a little bit of a trend line, no? A little bit of a channeling going downwards, no? So yan po yung nakikita natin for the Euro JPY. Okay. How about Euro CHF? Okay, to be honest, I'm not a fan of CHF. I don't like trading this pair. I don't like trading the CHF, but you know, ayan. So ito yung ating resistance. Ito yung ating support. Okay, kita nyo, a very well manipulated level. Diyan. Okay. And ayan. So yan po yung ating support. Yan po yung ating resistance. And looking at the H4 charts, you have the market a little bit consolidating. Ayan, kita nyo po. You have a nice trend line going down. Ngayon po, medyo nagcha-channel din naman siya sa pababa, no? And ngayon medyo sumisikip ng konti yung ating yung ating channel dito, no? Pero pag ganyan, mukha pa naman patuloy pababa yan. Okay. All right, I have a question here. Sir, anong time frame dapat tayo papasok, no? Normally you take a step down. If you're looking at the D1 charts, you go sa H4 doon ka papasok, or if you want to be a little bit more advanced, 2 steps down sa may H1, no? Pagbaba mo doon sa levels na 'yon, and you know, if the market is already at your specific trade levels na gusto mo mag-buy or sell, saka ka na maghahanap ng confirmation like candlestick confirmations, divergences, no, other stuff that would add confluence to your trade. Okay? So normally 1 or 2 steps down. Okay. So yan po yung ating Euro CHF. All right. So yun naman po yung ating channels, no? So again, if it's channeling upwards, no, you look for opportunities to buy at support, no? And kung nabasag yung support, that's the time you can sell. If the market is going downwards, then you sell at the bounce of the resistance, and then you can also buy at the break of the resistance. What do you mean by that? So kung titignan po natin dito, let's have a balik tayo dun sa chart natin kanina sa GBP/USD. I think that is relatively simple. No? So if the market is coming down here, what that is saying is that we can look for opportunities to sell dito po sa may resistance. No? So you can look for opportunities to sell there. Ayan. So iyan ko na lang. I'll just highlight it. No? Ayan. So dyan tayo maghanap ng opportunity to sell. Okay. Now, if the market, goes up here and does not bounce off of that area, ang nangyari po, sabihin natin, ay tumagos yung presyo, then you can look for opportunities to trade on its breakout. So pwede ka mag-buy on breakout, no? But again, we'll have another session on breakouts. Okay? So yun ang pwede mong gawin. The point here is that if the price goes down dito sa ating support, yan, iayusin ko yung channel natin. Okay? And if the market is going down and price actually hits your support over here, dapat mo ba tayong bumili paakyat? Okay? The answer there is no. Okay? Bakit? Kasi yung market pabagsak. So we just want to follow the trend going downwards. Okay? So you don't actually buy there. Sir, paano kung nabasag naman yung support dito sa baba habang bumabagsak? What if it became steeper? Do I sell there? No. Hindi ka rin magsisell dyan. So actually, pag babagsak yung market, wala kang masyadong gagawin dito sa support. Okay? You just use it as a guide for your take profit. Okay? Ang talagang titignan mo is yung resistance. Kasi yung resistance, if the market goes up to your resistance, that presents you an opportunity to sell. If it breaks past that, then that gives you an opportunity to buy upon breakout. Okay? Now, if the market is trending upwards, kagaya nito, okay, let's say the market is trending upwards here, tapos yung resistance natin, yan, sabihin natin, ganyan. So you have a nice channeling market upwards. No? So whenever it hits your support dito sa may baba, you can look for opportunities to buy. Okay lang yan. Kapag nabasag yung support natin, gaya dito sa area na to, then you can look for opportunities to sell. Okay? Paano naman kapag nasa resistance? Should I sell at the resistance while the market is going upwards? No. Okay? Because you're contradicting the trend. At the same time, if the market breaks out of that resistance, you also don't do anything because it only becomes a steeper movement upwards. Baka hindi sustainable yon. Okay? So we don't really do anything with the resistance kapag uptrend yung market. All right? So that's my point there. Okay, any questions with our channels? Malinaw po ba lahat? Okay. Kapag ranging yung market, can we sell at resistance and buy at support? That's a good question. No? Yes, you can, but you only take the bigger ones. Lalo kapag ranging, dangerous ang ranging market eh. So, kung maghahanap ka ng trade levels during a ranging market, you only take the big swings in the market, yung talagang big swings. So, kung titignan natin yung Euro-USD, balik tayo dito. Looking at Euro-USD again. Yan, looking at Euro-USD, sa daily chart, kung mapapansin nyo, ranging yung market eh. Relatively Market is a little bit ranging. Kaya po, ang gagawin lang natin is kukunin lang natin yung mga malalaking swing sa market. Alright? So thanks for that question. That's very informative for everyone. Okay. Now the last part is if you're really having a difficult time locating your supports and resistances manually, like what we did earlier, you can actually use the help of pivot points. No? Ano naman yung pivot points? Your pivot points, we're not gonna go too deep on it now, but I will explain the concept. Yung pivot points po, these are automatically generated levels that can be used as supports and resistances. Actually, yung pivot points, ang daming variations yan. No, you have your standard pivot points, which is something that we're going to discuss today. And then you have a ton of other variations. Meron kang Fibonacci pivots, meron kang Camarilla, meron kang Demarks, meron kang, ang dami, no? Woodies, there's a lot. I haven't memorized all of them since I don't really use majority of them, no? So let's just discuss the standard pivot points. You know, we can learn it for now, and then later you can branch out to other types of pivot points, no, that would, you know, be to your liking. Okay? So, ano yung pivot points? Yung pivot points natin, these are automatically generated supports and resistances based on yung previous high, low, and close na candlestick mo. Okay? So, sa standard pivot points, you actually have 7 lines here. No? Meron kang linya sa gitna, that's called your pivot point. Okay? Then you have 3 lines on the top side, those are your resistances. And then you have 3 lines to the downside, no? Those are your supports. Okay? So automatically, nag-generate na siya. Okay? So yung pivot points po natin dito, no? They are used to identify potential supports and resistances. And what's nice about it is that it's relatively objective, no, compared doon sa manually mo na ginagawa, no? Kasi if, you know, given the same data, if you compute for pivot points and then someone else computes for pivot points, you would end up with the same levels. Okay? Now, if you know, draw your supports and resistances manually, then baka hindi same levels yung mga lumabas sa inyo. Okay? So it's very objective, no? And, you know, as supports and resistances, bounces and breaks can be traded with those. Okay? So, ito yung na-mention ko kanina, you have a pivot point in the middle, you have your resistances at the top, and then you have your supports below. So, 1, 2, 3 yan. Now, your level 1s are very easy to hit. Okay? So, madaling tamaan yan, no? And most of the time, they get hit, no? And madali din silang mabutas. Okay? Now, as you go deeper, yung mga level 2, mas mahirap yung tamaan pero mas matitibay yung mga yan. No? So there is you know, higher chance that the price could bounce off of those areas compared to your 1. No? Yung 3, these are rarely hit areas. No? Rarely hit. So hindi yan madalas talagang tinatamaan. It's a rare occasion that, you know, the market would get there. And when it does, normally, nagre-reverse din talaga yung market siya. No? So it's actually a stronger support or resistance compared to 1 and 2. Okay? All right. Now, these are the calculation of your pivot points. Okay. So, ang ginagawa niyo po dyan, we're not going to calculate, you know, all of them today, but we may calculate like a couple of ones. Okay. So, yung pivot point po natin dyan, how to get it is that you get your high, low, and close doon po sa previous candlestick natin. Okay. Now, let me give you an idea first on the different time frames ng ating pivot points. No? You can have daily pivot points, you can have weekly pivot points, or you can have monthly pivot points. What do you mean by that? Yung pivot points po kasi, as mentioned earlier, it is based on high, low, and close. High, low, and close ng ano? High, low, and close of either a previous day, a previous week, or a previous month. Okay? So, let's talk about previous day muna. So, kung previous day, ang tinitingnan mo is ano yung high kahapon, no? Ano yung low kahapon, at ano yung closing price kahapon. So those are the factors that you will need. No? You have your high, low, and close. And then from there, you divide that by 3, you'll get your pivot point. Now, if you want to get your level 1s, then yan yung equation. No? Basically, kung yung R1, multiply mo yung pivot point by 2, then you minus your low, and you will end up with your R1. No? Yung R2 naman, kunin mo yung pivot point, no? Tapos, kunin mo yung high minus low. And then after that, i-add mo yun doon sa pivot point, you'll be able to get your R2. No? So, nandiyan naman yung mga equations. You can check it out. No? You can actually do it manually. There are also a couple of external sites that can compute for you. Makikita nyo din naman po yun doon. But I do suggest you make your own computations kasi minsan pag iba yung servers ng broker, magkakaiba kayo ng konting high, low, and close. You know, 1 pip or 2 pip difference might offset the whole thing, no? So medyo hassle yun pag gano'n. Okay. So all right. So yan po yung mga equations. So maybe we can compute for like you know, a couple of ones now just to give you an idea, no? So again, those are daily pivot points, merong weekly, merong monthly. Ano yung weekly? Weekly, check mo yung last week, no? If you want to check what's gonna be the pivot point levels for this week, tignan mo yung last week. Ano yung highest point last week, ano yung lowest point, ano yung closing price last week. And then given the pivot point levels, yung pwede natin gamitin this week, no? Kung 1 month, ganun din naman. Look at last month, high, low, and close. And then that would be our guide for the next month. Okay? All right. So check natin yung check natin yung charts ngayon. Let's go to our charts. All right. So let's take a look at Euro USD first. Euro USD, dito tayo sa H1 so that you get to see the highest, lowest, and closing price of last week. By the way, nung kahapon. No? By the way, you can actually just go to daily to make it simple. Tapos, ito yung candlestick nung Friday. So, if you place your mouse over that, you would notice dito sa may pinakababa, may makikita kayo dyan, OHLC. Tapos may mga numbers. Dito sa may baba, katabi nung date, OHLC. So, yan actually yung open, high, low, and close nung previous, yung candlestick na to. So, if we compute for that, again, the pivot point would be, i-compute na lang natin I have a calculator over here. So, you just, give me a moment dito. So, kung ang high natin, nandito sa may baba, 1.1253, in-negate ko na yung pipet, yung fifth decimal point. So, actually, dapat hindi nyo siya in-negate pero sisimplihan mo natin yan. 1.12 53. All right. And then we add yung low, 1.1167. And then we add yung close, 1.1175. All right. And then we divide that by 3. All right. And then the number that I came up with is, lagay ko I'll write it down. So our pivot point is 1.1198. So that's our pivot point right there. Ngayon naman po, so kung babalik tayo dito sa equation natin, yung ating S1, S1 na lang compute natin is double the pivot point minus the high. Yung R1, double the pivot point minus the low. Alright, so if we go back there, ayan. So multiply natin by 2 yung ating pivot point. That would be 2.2396. So kindly bear with me, habang kino-compute po natin to. So that would be 2.2396. Okay. Tapos, if we minus our low, dito, so 2.23 minus, okay, wait lang Ito yung natin, chart natin dyan. Yung low natin is 1.1167. 1.1167. We get 1.1229. So 1.1229. Tapos yung isang level naman po, kung i-add natin yung high, so that is again 2.2396. And then we minus yung high naman natin. Our high is 1.1253. Ayan, kung makikita po natin, di ba? Ayan yung high. Minus 1.1253. So that's 1.1143. 1.1143. Okay. And with that, yan po yung magiging levels po natin. Okay. So if we put our lines over here, yan. Adjust nyo na lang sa parameters. So yung ating support, 1.1143. That is our S1. Tapos yung R1 naman natin is 1.1229. Click OK. Yan po yung magiging R1 natin. So if we go down to the H1 chart, for Monday, yan po yung magiging levels nyo. This is your resistance right here. Ito yung R1 natin sa taas. Ito po yung S1 naman po natin sa may baba. Okay. So that is how to, generate instant supports and resistances. No? So, mabilisan. Kung ayaw nyo yung ginawa natin kanina, gusto nyo medyo ganito yung paraan, pwede rin. Okay? So, that's gonna be your S1 and your R1. Right? So, pwede rin nyo rin compute yung R2 at saka S2 para you'll get a better view of it. I do suggest that you make an Excel file based on that para hindi nyo na siya minamano-mano every time. Okay? So, if you're the type of person or trader that would prefer using pivot points, then I highly suggest meron kayong sarili nyong Excel file so that you can make your own computations. Okay? Alright, so I have a question over here. So yung pivot points pwede rin gamitin as TP1, 2, and 3. Pwede rin TP1 and 2. Pero yung 3, hindi na umaabot yan madalas. No? So medyo ano na yan. Not a very good TP, no? Kung TP3. Alright. Ay, thanks for summarizing this. Yung zigzag plus candlesticks. You have trend lines, channels, and then as well as pivot points. Alright. So, any questions? No? May tanong po ba tayo? So, a couple of final notes. No? I do suggest that whenever you trade, you only trade when the price reaches those levels. So, sana itong tatlong techniques na natutunan po natin ngayon on how to locate trade levels, it would give you less confusion sa market. Now, the market is very chaotic. It's very crazy if you take a look at it, especially when you're starting out. So, you have to clear out all that noise. You have to have very specific areas where you want to buy or where you want to sell para hindi magulo yung trading natin. No? So that you're not all over the place. Yung hindi tipong may marinig lang kayo dun sa BBC or sa CNBC or sa Bloomberg, bigla na lang kayo magbabuy or bigla kayo magsisell. No, it still has to be in very specific buy or sell areas. Okay? Next is try to use higher time frames to look for the best areas to trade. Sa D1 charts, H4 charts, okay yan. Kung kaya mga weekly, mas maganda. Matitibay talaga yung mga yon. If you're very, a little bit impatient, gusto mo maraming trade and you're making a lot of supports and resistances on M15 charts, H1 charts, asahan nyo na hindi ganun kaganda yung batting average natin sa trading. Okay? So, the lower time frames are less reliable when it comes to, using the techniques that we learned here today. Now, lastly, whipsaws happen, no, due to stop hunts. Normal yan. Kasama talaga yan, no? So, whenever you have your stop losses, you can place it beyond your supports or resistances. Or better yet, have more confirmation to your trade. Gamit ka ng mga candlestick patterns. Yun nga yun actually matututunan natin next session. You can use divergences with that. No? You can have other confluence factors to help you avoid whipsaws. No? But at the end of it, mawi-whipsaw pa rin tayo. Normal yan sa market. No? Ano yung whipsaw? Yung kapag may support ka, bubutasin ng saglit, babalik sa market. No? Dun sa mga examples natin kanina, meron eh. Okay? So, that's normal in the market. Alright? Okay, I have a question. Meron bang indicator na pivot point na nag-autoplot? Meron po. But those are third-party indicators. Try to search for them on the net. May mga nagpo-provide naman yan. Automatic na gumagawa. I used to have one na meron D1. I'll see if I still have it. Pero parang na-delete ko na yata yun. Nasa lumang laptop pa yun. But I only searched for it sa internet din naman. So it's just like third-party stuff. Okay, maraming pivot point indicators online. Yun, meron po. No? Kaya sinasabi ko din, merong third-party providers you can check out on the net. Gine-generate nila pivot points para sa inyo. Although, check nyo din yung comparison sa charts nyo kasi baka mamaya kung magkaiba ng price server, syempre nagkakaroon ng offset ng konti yan. So, try to compare it to your own charts. First, gawa ka muna manual computations. Check mo kung medyo malapit. Okay na siguro yan. Okay, this is a question that I've been wanting to ask you for a while now. Do you do scalping? Honestly, no. It's not because I don't want to do it. It's because I suck at it. No, personally, I'm not a good scalper. So I'll be honest, it's my weakness as a trader. So I'm not very good at it, and I've been trying for a very long time to scalp, and so I just kind of stick to what I do best. So it's more of that. Sir, ano pong view nyo sa Euro Recovery Fund? I'll answer that in a bit. Ano pong recommend nyo? Pivot point or zigzag? I do prefer zigzag personally. Okay? Alright, so kung wala ng questions regarding the current topic, okay, I think that's it. Okay? I-end ko muna yung recording.